All right. This is Luke Martin, and I will be your host tonight for Inside the IWAR, a look into the hearts, minds, and people behind the IWAR and the IWA. This evening, I had a conversation with the very mortal Juan Cena, talking to him a little bit about his background, how he got involved with the IWA and the IWAR in particular, as well as talking about the wrestler Luther Alexander, the most hated man in the IWAR for a very long time now, and just discussing with him a little bit about the state of wrestling and all that. So let's go ahead and go to the audio. All right, well, how's it going tonight? How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain, although if I did, no one would listen.
That's very true, but there's always the internet, so you can go ahead and write comments on somebody's blog or something about how you hate life. Basically, I want to get in here tonight, kind of pick your brain. You're pretty well known around these parts, but nobody really sits and kind of interviews, learns a little bit about you. We have kind of tidbits, so you just become kind of like we just start making judgments based off the things we hear about you. At least I do.
They're all true, by the way. Good, bad, or indifferent, they're all true.
You're from the New York area. So the thing about, like, when I say, like, New York, Chicago, basically any big city is everybody's from those cities, but no one actually lives in them. You know, I live in Nashville. I don't live in Nashville. I live like an hour away, but I work there, and it's the biggest city around me. So that's what I say to people. So where do you actually live in that area?
45 minutes away from New York City, on Long Island. Again, just like your average commuter town, everyone works in the city for the most part. Commute is actually really, really simple. You just jump on a train and you go.
See, that's nice. Like, I have to drive. So I drive. I live, maybe, like you said, I live like 45 minutes away from Nashville, but I spend an hour and a half every morning in the car. Because this city has refused to accept. It needed to grow, and now it's become a huge problem where it just takes a ridiculous amount of time to move in or go into the city. But if you try to live in the city, you're paying 4 or 5 times as much for the same size home.
Yeah, the cool thing about Long Island is that a lot of the the bigger towns, especially with the younger generation, everyone lives near the train station. So we have all these little hamlets or towns, and your typical Main Street, Main Street USA, and the train station is literally you can walk from your house. So you don't technically you need a car to live on Long Island, but technically you don't, because if you want to get to the city, you just jump on a train and off you go.
See, like, I have this really skewed view, so like 32. So all my view of like early New York is based off of like movies.
They're all true.
Yeah, so like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like that was how I viewed New York, or like Ghostbusters, or even like the Warriors. So I just assumed they were like roving gangs of people, and there was just like this decrepit, dying city. Though I guess it's not like that anymore. But I mean, did you grow up in that area, like in Long Island, or did you grow up in New York, or is that?
My family's originally from the Bronx.
Okay.
And just like, any other typical immigrant family, they start having kids. Everyone moves out towards the island, or they go into Jersey, or they go into, Westchester, or what have you. But New York City in the 80s was exactly like that. I used to spend my summers in the Bronx. And you would see, you see pictures and movies of the just bombed out buildings. It looks like a war zone. It looks like it could be confused with Iraq. Because you see all these, former brownstones, some of these office buildings just dying, and they're just rotting away. I played in abandoned lots as a kid. This is one of the things that we did. Through the 90s, though, when we get to like the mid-90s, they went through this resurgence when they cleaned up Times Square, and they had a lot of what they call gentrification going on with Giuliani and his super cop program. Really cleaned up the streets quite a bit. And so I would say this, to be completely honest, New York City is probably one of the safest cities to be in the world today, period. Minus the guys with machine guns at Penn Station, but we have soldiers in Penn Station ever since 9/11. So,
I'm down with that. So I lived in Japan for a while. So I lived in Okinawa.
Did you? Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it's not as cool as it. I mean, it was beautiful there, but it's not like I was south. I lived in Okinawa, so I lived on this little island. So like
where Mr. Miyagi's from, like from Karate Kid.
Sure. Yeah, yes. Probably. That makes sense. So there's a lot of karate there, so it all correlates. But no, so it's like a prefecture of Japan, but it's kind of like the Hawaii of Japan. Like, Japanese came in and took it over. So native Okinawans they're Japanese, but they like are looked down by Japanese. I don't know. Japanese have, like, the Japanese over there, it's just like this weird cultural thing. But everybody's really nice. Like, I don't want to make it sound like it's like there's like all this division. There's really not. And people are really good. The Japanese people are really nice to us. All the service members over there, but I always like had this image of like what Japan would look like, and it's same thing. It's like really Tokyo, And like, no, the rest of Japan does not look like Tokyo. It's not Akira. There are like there's lots of lights and it looks like an Asian city, but it's not like Tokyo. There's Tokyo isn't the New York of Japan, so most places aren't like that. So I just had these really skewed views of things. Good that I've actually kind of left, because I'm really originally from Iowa, so I travel a little bit, but like going around and seeing different things, you kind of get a more realistic impression. Especially in like the 80s and the 90s, ratchet up to 1,000. So it's like just you have this really stupid view of like what life is like. Like I thought Japan would be like all video games and like anime or something, and it definitely wasn't. So, and samurai, which they're still. But
I like to watch their game shows because they're insane.
They don't make any sense. And occasionally they would have wrestling on.
And I see they have vending machines with panties inside. Like they sell used panties and vending machines.
See, the weirdest thing for us is they had cigarettes and vending machines. So I was like just old enough to remember that.
Well, we had them up here.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we used to get them. We used to sneak into bars. Like bars you would have kind of like the breezeway, and rebellious youths, we would crawl in on our hands and knees and put the money in and take the cigarettes out of the machine.
Like, I don't know. It was weird over there too because there was like no crime. But the Yakuza was there. So the Yakuza is like the Japanese mob. So they controlled like legitimate businesses and also like the criminal element. So if someone got out of line or did something, they would take care of it. So the police didn't really have a lot to do. So it kind of like balanced itself out. But Japan is all about like honor and like face and like looking good. It's like really cool because people actually like care about things, and then they treat each other respectfully. Nice. But at the same time, they kind of like, you do that and we don't look at it and it looks good, we're all happy. Like nobody questions what happens, which is fine because they're like really nice. And I mean, obviously as a service member, they didn't really do anything to you because it would just cause far more trouble. And no one's right. And we're not stupid enough to go like run our mouth. And if you were, your friends would definitely make sure. Like I got told I couldn't go into a bar because I was a gaijin, but usually that was for our own benefit, not for they didn't want us around. So that I only happened one time or so. So that was probably to my benefit because I'm not like a Japanese man with a bunch of tattoos. And the weird thing is tattoos over there are like considered like with the criminal element because the Yakuza have those. So like my wife and I couldn't go to like this water park with our daughter. Like if we wanted to take her, we couldn't go because we had visible tattoos. Really? Which is really archaic and weird. Tattoo shops everywhere because it's like we've been there since 1945, so people have been getting tattooed over there forever, and it's just they're very old school type thinking when it comes to like very specific things. It was beautiful. I liked it there a lot. My kids were born over there on base. Like I brought my wife from America, so
nice.
They were born on base, but it was a neat place to go. The water was like clear, like you could see your feet in the
ocean. Straight down.
Yeah, straight down. So you could and everybody was like super safe. You could go out like 4 a.m. and you're more likely to like get beat up by your fellow service members. So there was like this area that had like bathhouses, clubs, and so you didn't really see a lot of young people because in Okinawa people live forever evidently. Like it's like the largest centenarian population in the world, and women live longer there than anywhere else on earth. So there's like a lot of old people. So we kind of were running through this place like a wharf, and all these young people came out of the clubs, and there were people with earpieces. That was not a good place to be. And we had some drunk guy like run with us asking us why we were there. And we're not really allowed to say like, oh yeah, we're here to like fight these people or do this or whatever. Right. So we're just like, yeah, you're drunk. Because they were just like young people. And we'd run early in the morning and they'd be like stumbling out to like taxis and stuff. It was pretty interesting. But it was nice.
The one I dislike the most is the typical stereotypical New Yorker. Because a lot of people that are not from New York think that New Yorkers are like Vince Russo. And 99% of New Yorkers are not Vince Russo. To be honest, Vince Russo owned the video store 10 minutes away from my house. I don't know where he got this accent from, but it's not real. It's fake. Like, there's very few people who actually talk like that. Everyone talks like me.
Right. Well, I mean, like, okay, so I have a problem. Like, I'm originally from Iowa, so I have like really bad problem with picking up accents. So even like down here, like occasionally I'll like pick up an accent if I talk to somebody that has a really thick one. But normally I just speak. It's just weird. But yeah, like I don't know, like accents, like Boston accents or whatever. Like people have them, but they're very subtle. So they'll have like 1 or 2 words Like even like Matt, like will say some things, and like you can tell he's from that area because he'll be like, he don't want to listen to the podcast. He'll say something, I'll be like, it's really noticeable that you're from Boston. But 99% of the things that he says you can't. And I had people that I served with that were from that area, and they were like straight up like, this kid is from like the South Side or whatever. Yeah. But they had a little bit of an accent, but it wasn't like super annoyingly painful to speak to them. So
I hate the whole like, oh, we're big and bad and we're tough, and we are to a certain degree. But it's like I've traveled around the country, and especially when I was younger, the first thing they asked me, are you in a gang? I'm like, no, I'm not in a gang.
That's really disappointing. Like I really wanted to believe that the Warriors was based on a true story.
Now in the 70s, yes.
Oh, okay.
Like my grandfather, who came in the 50s, his sons, my uncles, was essentially West Side Story. Because I asked my mom, like, hey, Mom, was that really like that in the 50s? You were here. And she's like, yep, it's 100% true. I was like, with the cigarette rolled up and the grease back hat and the leather jackets, like, absolutely.
But no dancing? Like, I'm hoping.
There was.
There was dancing.
There was. I mean, we used to have breakdance fighting in New York City.
Okay, I believe that. Well, because I was watching some documentary about like the rise of hip hop, and they were talking about all that stuff in New York and like how that came from there and the culture, and I was like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, my brother once bought a mixtape from Method Man from the back side of his trunk. You run into people like all the time. It's like it's nothing. Especially when it comes to like rappers who are from New York, you see them. They're in the streets. Like, we had so and so rapper went you out. You live 2 blocks away from so and so rapper, because Long Island is very funny. It has your low income population, and then you have your middle class population, and your extremely wealthy population, but they all live in a 5 minute radius. Like there's no like crossing the tracks and getting into this bad neighborhood. It's like, no, you go from block to block. One block can have $90,000 homes, and the next block can have $500 million homes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that here now. Like there's a lot of gentrification, but there'll be like these huge like $1 million homes, and then like they'll be next to like an old farmhouse that someone like refused to sell their land. So it'll be like these multi-million-dollar homes, a home that's worth like maybe built like $150,000, but because it's in its area, it's worth like $400,000. But it's like that's completely out of place. And it's not. There's people they're not poor, I guess, but they look like just you're like, what the hell? I don't understand how on the same road, literally, they're like it goes from this to this and then back again to like multi-million-dollar homes. So it's very weird how things work, but we see a lot of celebrities around. We see a lot of musicians around, rappers around. Like they're just kind of just part of the neighborhood. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when Nashville, it's kind of a lesser extent. Like a lot of country music people, like you'll see them around and stuff, like out and about because they live around the area. But it's not as prevalent, obviously, as New York, because New York is like the mecca. I once ran into P. Diddy at a McDonald's in the Hamptons. True story. He was trying to get a Whopper, but it was McDonald's. And they didn't have Whoppers because of McDonald's. So he made the guy behind the counter go across the street to the Burger King to get him a Whopper. Like all I can imagine is the Chappelle show skit. That's exactly how it was. It was insane. He was like with these big giant dudes, and we're just standing there. I'm like no one's gonna go up to him and talk to him at this point. And he's dressed all in white, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And he has like a Burberry hat on. I'm like, this is like late 90s, early 2000s. We're sitting there like, yeah, that's him. He's wearing clear sunglasses. I don't understand. They're clear. They're not protecting anything. They're to protect his eyes from dust. It was definitely weird. But being from New York, there's always an attachment to the WWF. Right. This is the home of the WWF. This is where Madison Square Garden, which I've been to on numerous occasions. Nassau Coliseum, which I've also been to on numerous occasions. So I think we have a different viewpoint on WWF than maybe the rest of the country, because the WWF is more near and dear to our hearts, especially at the early stuff. I remember, when I grew up in the 80s, it was the big debate was like, who's better, Hogan or Bruno? And I don't think people in California or in Texas were talking about Bruno Sammartino the way that New Yorkers would talk about Bruno Sammartino. I think just listening to him talk, his story, he is like a superhero. He's Captain America, even though he's from Italy, but he's like Captain America. So it's just weird. It's just so hard to imagine how over he was, I think, because you can't. They had regional champions, you had Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, whatever. But just in New York, Bruno Bruno was
The only
God,
closest
like,
thing is be Lawler in Memphis.
Yeah, that makes it. Yeah,
That'd be the closest thing. But even like Bruno will go over to Toronto and be over as hell, and he would go to Australia. But New York is always a special place. And the WWF back in the day, it's a much larger territory. So it was New York, it was Boston, it was Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Bangor, Maine was one of their big towns back then. Pretty big territory, and Bruno was over in all of them. But New York was insane.
It's Pittsburgh, isn't he?
He's from Pittsburgh. They when he lost the belt to Billy Graham, they couldn't have it in the Garden because people would have rioted. They would get heat on Bruno, and people would have heart attacks and die. Like in the front row, you can see him. I can literally go back and watch like 1974 MSG shows, and you'll see a bunch of cops with EMTs, and you look down, oh, Bruno's busted open. Someone died because they're going to fucking save this person because they just had a heart attack.
Well, I know they like stabbed Larry Zbyszko when they were doing that big featured master thing. Like someone tried to murder him. What I don't understand is like how Stan Hansen made it out of there alive. Like when he broke Bruno's neck, it was like an accident, granted. And I guess but I mean, like, how did he get out of there?
I don't know if a lot of people know that Madison Square Garden is on top of Penn Station.
Okay,
so what you can walk downstairs and there's a trillion subways. And then there's the New Jersey Transit. There's the Amtrak train that can take you to Pennsylvania, and then there's the Long Island Railroad, will take you out to Long Island. So all they got to do is sneak them downstairs and then chuck them on a train, and then send them somewhere, and then go pick them up later.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
because I just never got because like they never said like what happened. Like it's like I broke his neck, blah blah blah. It was like awful, whatever. It was an accident. Stories they talked about.
When Koloff won the belt, they said the Garden was silent. Cheers, no boos, no nothing, just silence, shock. Like, he didn't even get heat. They thought something like... Bruno thought he went deaf. Imagine a building that, holds 20,000 people completely silent. Because they were shocked that, Ivan Koloff had just defeated Bruno Sammartino for the belt. And I was like, holy shit.
I just don't think you can get that. Like, there's nothing in wrestling that you could do. Maybe in Japan or, like, in Mexico or, like, some of, like, a territory that's big, but not, like with the WWE, with, like Brock Lesnar loses the belt. Like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not like...
the closest thing was a streak, right? Undertaker. That was, like, the closest thing you can get to it.
Well, and I think they blew that. Like,
I agree.
That was a waste of that. Oh, that's just modern booking. Well, at least WWE booking, but they're going to get their due here soon. Being from the area, like you said, WWF, but you also, like... I guess I didn't realize this, but like because you're in New York, you get more than just you get everything, right? Yeah. Because you have.
So as a wrestling fan, so I started watching wrestling. I tried to date stuff. I do remember watching the first episode of Superstars. So that would take me late '86, early '87 to my first show in 1987. The main event of that show was Hercules Hernandez taking on Hulk Hogan for the belt. This is a little bit after WrestleMania 3, but I was all in by 1989. It was Hogan and Savage. We watched wrestling, obviously, every Saturday, but I wasn't as invested. I started buying the magazines and the action figures, and, my 10th birthday was a WWF birthday, and the whole nine. But in New York, we got everything. So we got AWA on ESPN. We had all the WWF shows, the A, B, C, and D shows. So there's 4 shows. We had World Championship Wrestling and their B show and their C show. And the E show, because we got the show out of Chicago on WGN. So, and then we had Florida Championship Wrestling, or World Class came in for a time. If you had the Financial News Network, World Class Championship Wrestling was on the Financial News Network. You can get Mid-South, and then any kind of local indies. I think I counted one time it was 16 hours worth of wrestling on television. And these are hour shows, not the 3-hour extravaganzas we have today. They're hour shows, all of them different. And then as we get into the 90s, don't forget that we also had ECW. We had something called the AWF, the American Wrestling Federation, which had round systems. We had Crockett's new show out of Texas with his new NWA that failed after like 5 episodes. No one really remembers that but me because I watched it. But yeah, we literally got everything. Being a New Yorker, like we saw WCW, and I remember that, there was a podcast from people from the South. God bless your hearts. And it's like, oh, maybe they didn't watch WCW because, or the reason why they couldn't draw in Nassau Coliseum is because they didn't get the show. And I was like, bullshit. We got fucking Saturday night. I watch that shit every week at 6:05. That's why in New York you see a lot of Atlanta Braves fans. Because we had TBS. A lot of, I forget who was either the Cubs, the White Sox, or WGIN, but
I think WGN had both of them.
Both. So there's a lot. We love our Yankees, we love our Mets, but we also have auxiliary teams as well. We'd be Atlanta Braves, the White Sox, the Cubs, LA Dodgers, because it's still that Brooklyn connection here. So we had tons of wrestling on TV, and I watched it all. I started taping shit off the TV. I just watched it all. Like, no matter how good or how bad. And some of those the WCW shows were pretty awful.
So you said it was up to like, you said it was like 16 hours, right?
Yeah, approximately about 16 hours of professional wrestling. It depends. Now, you can add some if there was a Saturday Night's Main Event, or a Clash of Champions, or a pay-per-view on that week. You can watch wrestling and just about nothing else, if you were so inclined. In addition, I used to go down to the Blockbuster and rent, wrestling pay-per-views constantly. So I spent my weekends, getting an NES game and, WrestleMania 6.
So how did you come to the IW? Because you play it when you were like, because a lot of people are like, oh, I played it when I was like 10, and then I discovered it when I was like 30.
Yes and no. I played an IWA bootleg. So back in the day when the IWA got really popular, I guess the original golden age was probably like 86 to 90, there was copycats. They saw how well the IWA was doing, and there were copycats leagues, and I forget which magazine that I found it in, but it wasn't the IWA, it was something different. And actually, I won the world championship 2 cycles then. And I think they folded like right after that. But I also did a boxing game that was like that. A play-by-mail boxing game that only ran 4 times a year.
So what did you do for like how did that even work?
It was same concept. Same concept, and then you would pay for your fights or your matches, and then you would submit trash talk. And it was a very similar, the same concept with the copycat. Poorly run, and they wouldn't last very long. I think Matt said there was like a shit ton of them. There was like a baseball one, and there was a football one, and there was all types of shit.
Now, did you ever do any of like the Feuds and like the early 90s?
Yes. Okay. I think there was one, I want to say CompuServe back in the day. There was one on that. I did a couple of them. I thought they were all shitty. I don't like any of them. I was more into this. Now, this might sound crazy. As a child, I knew I probably wasn't going to become a wrestler, but maybe I can become a booker. So I would make my own federations up, and I would have them written out in a marble notebook. And when I went back and looked at this, it's exactly laid out like the IWA. So it would have the arena, the Meadowlands, and then it would have matches. So-and-so defeated so-and-so. It would be like Steve Austin beat Hulk Hogan in 1920 Stone Cold Stunner. And they were laid out the same exact way. And I had 2 of them. I had one of all original characters, and I had one of I did a combination of WWF and WCW, and then threw in some ECW guys. And my first big pay-per-view, the main event was Sabu versus Hulk Hogan. So just to show you where my head was at the time.
So it was basically like Extreme Wrestling. What's that game? The one where you can like book for Extreme Wrestling Revenge.
Yes.
That was on paper. Okay.
Yeah, I actually played Extreme Wrestling, Extreme Warfare Revenge. I actually still have that game on my computer. There was actually a paid version for a short period of time that wasn't as good as the free version.
Right.
But yeah, I would go back and I'm booking Georgia in '79, or I would go back and I would play WCW 1995 all over again, or the rebirth of ECW before they rebirthed ECW. And also there was SmackDown. I think it was Bring the Pain had a booking simulator in it.
Wow.
And I could do bookings, and it would grade you on the card. Like, it would be like, oh, this was an A, this was a C, blah, 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 blah. And
well, that's cool. So,
I had Steve Carino as my world champion because I was an idiot.
So kind of like the way they do like the universe, but except it's like actually like booking focused, not just like random.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch the match if you want, but you could just skip it. And there's no like RPG elements to it. It was just see how good you can book a show.
Gotcha. And so then what brought you to the IWA?
I was having my gallbladder removed, so I was in the hospital for a couple of days, and my wife was so kind to bring me a couple of issues of, I think it was Inside Wrestling, PWI. Yeah, it's just for me to read. And I'm scrolling through, I'm like, oh, shit, what the hell is this? And it's IWA. And it had it had their typical advertisement, which it's back now, by the way. For those people that thought the game was dying because they pulled it out of the PWI, they're back in there now. So I was thinking about it, and then I searched it online. Couldn't really find I found their website. I found the dungeon, and read what was going on in there. And then after reading the dungeon, I was like, maybe I don't want to join this because I don't like arguing with people all the time. And it seems like what the game was based on. From the outside looking, it's like, oh, we just talk shit about each other and fucking I was like, I'm not really interested in doing that. If I wanted to argue with someone, I'll go on Reddit or something. It took a couple of months, and then after a while, I was like, I got a new job. I had some disposable income because I was making a lot more money. I'm like, I'll give this a try. How expensive could it be? Well, did I know? Just like everyone else, I cut it out from the fucking magazine. I put in my holds and I sent it. And I get my packet back in the mail. I'm like, well, this is big. And then immediately wondering why. How come they don't do this online? How come they don't take PayPal? What the hell's going on? I have to send checks? Do I send checks? Do I just send cash? I don't know how this works. All confused. So I went searching online and I found the Hoosier message board, which was run by Bob Rogers, our good friend, my longtime personal friend. I'm going to be on a show at some point in the near future. So just like everyone else, I just set my money in, got the bulletin. I was like, all right, I kind of get it, what they're trying to do here. Went on the message board, just kind of got a very elementary understanding of drops and holds. See what was going on in trash talk. And my original concept. Now, Luther was my first character. That's the first one I ever did.
Before you go on, who all do you manage? I know, obviously, Luther, Che, but name all the wrestlers that you currently manage right now.
There's Luther Alexander, Che Guerrero, Black Demon Jr., and the Walking Riot, Heather Hyatt.
Okay, so what leagues are they in? Because I know, like, Luther's in, technically 3, but wrestles in 2, sometimes 3.
So Luther is in the IWL and BRL, respectively. He's also the figurehead commissioner of the NWL. Heather Hyatt is in the BRL. Black Demon Jr. and Che Guerrero are both in the IWL.
So you're talking about, Luther probably, I would say that's probably your most well-known character. I don't think anyone would argue that. Everyone hates him, so he's obviously...
It's literally the one I focus on. So everyone is... it's my main character. I don't really focus on things here and there. Like, I'm doing something really cool with Black Demon Jr. now, but Luther is my guy, and if I only had to pick one character, he would be the guy I would...
So you were saying, kind of with Luther, so did you have the idea, I'm going to make this guy just this insane heel, or
Nope.
What was the idea?
The original concept for Luther Alexander was going to be a babyface, and he was a babyface to start. The concept was Taz. I wanted him to be Taz. So that's why his finisher, that's the Oxygen Destroyer, is the Taz mission.
Okay.
Originally. And the concept was me being probably a little too overly ambitious. And then when I wrote stuff, I don't think people really understood it. The concept was he's going to be a world warrior, kind of like Ryu from Street Fighter. He would go around the entire world looking for the best competition and defeat them and be crowned the world's best fighter, whatever. That was the initial concept. And if you go back and look at the original TT from Luther Alexander, it's exactly what he did. But instead of going to Japan or New York City or wherever, he would go to wrestling landmarks. So I think the first one was the Double Cross Ranch in Amarillo, Texas, the home of the Funk family. He would go to Arena, Mexico and talk, do his thing. He went to the village that Andre the Giant was born in, kind of retracing these steps. So that's what I was doing. And at the time, I was feuding with my first feud was with the brothers in question. Izzy Crazy, Willie Survive, and I forget who the third guy was. That was basically my first feud. He was, just a rugged babyface. And then I wrote a trash talk taking place from an old Russian wrestling training facility. It was going to be in Russia. And this is my homage to the Koloffs, right? So there's a part where, it's all dilapidated because, Cold War era type shit. And there's, a decrepit old flag there. And he picks up a Russian chain, but it's all rusted. And he cuts his promo. And no one understood what the fuck I was doing. No one got it. It was so bad that even the Teamster just didn't make fun of me. And that was the Teamster's job. We would take new guys and yeah. Sort of like what William Worthy does now.
Right. So
no one knew what I was doing. So Bob Rogers, who was managing Colonel Max Strife at the time, basically said, "Oh, you're Russian." Blah blah blah. He just said I was Russian. And in his trash talk. And so instead of going against the grain and kind of correcting him, I just went with it. I'm like, all right, he's Russian now. We'll make him Russian. Fuck it.
Gotcha. So when was all this? So I don't know how
2013, early 2013.
Because I remember Luther Alexander was still, when I came in, I don't remember, it was 2014 sometime. Originally, Luther Alexander was already an established heel. Yeah. So then Colonel Max Strife was doing something, and there was Revolution. So I've always wondered, and we're talking about so where did Revolution Extreme come from? Because I kind of got the thing with like Johnny Revolution like taking over, but I just didn't understand like what or some of the stuff with Matt doing the history of the BRL, and that kind of tied into it. But so like, where did all that concept come from, or like where did you come in to that as part of like the Revolution Extreme?
Well, I think it starts out with the formation of the IWAR, which I forget what year they established the IWAR. It might have been 2010. IWAR is IWA Revolution, by the way. I don't know if people know that. Johnny Revolution owned the IWAR. He was the owner and authority figure for the entire IWAR, just like the Teamster is today. And he was the commissioner of the NWL. So they're doing this big feud, and I came in right in the tail end of it, where Johnny Revolution was recruiting his revolutionaries. And they were going up against the babyfaces, and they're going to have this War Games match. And if they lost the War Games match, Johnny Revolution would be banned and thrown out of the IWA completely. Luther's getting some traction as a heel, so he was invited to join up with Johnny Revolution and his revolutionaries. They had the match, and long story, spoiler alerts. This is like 4 years ago, but spoiler alerts. Both Luther Alexander and Great David is on the team. Great David had turned on the revolutionaries, and Luther Alexander ended up being the one who taps out at the end. So he's the one that loses. So Johnny Revolution is banished. Babies are thrown up in the air. Babyface wins. All is set right with the world. Johnny B regains power in the IWA. The Teamsters are put in charge of the IWAR, and then we're off and running. After that is when Luther went crazy, because he started searching. He felt guilty about Johnny Revolution had been a mentor to him, and was one of his big proponents, and he just went nuts looking for him. During that time period, I did a series of TTs of where he's searching for him. So he's like looking, in the strip club. He's looking, in the bar. He's looking, he went back to his old house and went looking for him. Ended up at a graveyard, and I finally saw a tombstone that said Johnny Revolution Sr. on it. And then he's like, you bastards. Although he never died, but so at that point he went completely banana. The timeline might be kind of screwy on this. That happens, and then Aleatori picks him to join the Foreign Legion in the IWL to take on James Ross and his group, and they fight for a while until the Foreign Legion gets disbanded. So that's where the kind of the modern inception of what you see Luther Alexander is today stems from that. And then I play with his character development. So in the BRL, he's more crazy. He's more like Brian Pillman. Right. And the NWL, he's the commissioner. He's not that crazy. And then kind of the IWL, he's more like, I want to win, and I need to win this IWL Heavyweight Championship. Depending on what leagues he's in, he changes slightly.
Gotcha.
And that all goes to character development.
So he started in the NWL, and then did you keep him in the NWL and then like graduate him into the BRL and then the IWL, or how did that work? How did that progression go?
He went through his entire 17-cycle process. And I encourage anyone from the NWL to do this. I wrote an exit for him. So the big exit was, I think at the time he's feuding with a bunch of people. They're so sick of his shit by this time, since he's such a dastardly heel, that the entire locker room confronts him, and Luther proclaims that I'm never leaving the NWL. I'm going to stay here forever. Just like our good friend Hulk Hollywood will never leave the NWO, because I'm trying, guys, to get rid of him. I'm trying to get him to graduate. So the whole gimmick was, I'm never leaving. Ha, ha, ha. You guys can't make me leave. And the entire locker room attacks him, strips him down naked, puts him in a straitjacket, puts him on a short yellow bus, and sends him out of the arena. And then at that point, I had to make a decision if I was going to the CWL or the IWL, because at the time, I thought the BRL was going to be too tough. So I had to pick between those two leagues, and I ended up picking the IWL.
So yeah, with the BRL, I don't know why, but there's always, I think because it's so old and there's so many established players, and you see like them, especially when I first came in, it was like the BRL was always like at the top of like everything to do with the IWAR. And then like Sir Gunther and like stuff like that. And you just see so many players that come out of there. I think there's like this intimidation factor, and it is difficult. But after leaving the NWL and going like the IWL or whatever, the IWL is no easier than the BRL. So I mean, you're having to get a regional. I mean, other than this last cycle, which was really wonky for everyone, like you're having to get like 498, 499, even, and you know sometimes you're winning that from like the Battle Royal or whatever.
You're definitely gonna have to star. So it definitely has to be a 495 and above. You can probably sneak a 495 or 496 in there, but historically it's going to be your 497s, 498s, and so on and so forth to get a regional in both those leagues at this point. But when I joined the IWO, it wasn't as tough. That has come over the last 2 years. But there was other leagues that I went into because I actually left the IWO for a while. I went over to the BBL, couldn't get any traction. Went to the ASL, couldn't get any traction, and ended up going back to the IWO. So I always recommend people, hey, if you're not getting any traction in the league, like you're not feuding with anyone, you don't have trash talk, if you're not doing anything, leave. Go somewhere else. You can always come back.
Well, I think the big thing too is like I like the whole concept of the NWL because it's kind of like what WWE did with Next, where they don't do it the correct way, but you're having these developed feuds and you're developing your character, but you're developing feuds. So people come in with the history. So you keep running into the same people. So you have these long-standing feuds, and it really helps characters. So like when TMS came in, like Neo Dragon had already fought McFleece, and he'd already they have something that's already there. It's already established people. That was his last match. Like my last match was against Aaron McFleece, and he was on a roll, and that was like the one cycle he had off, so I beat him. So it made me feel real great, made me look good. I was able, so it kind of like establishes there's already a feud there. You can build off that. So I think that going and like you said, doing all 17 cycles of NWL and giving yourself like a nice segue out of the league, it might be kind of frustrating because you're like, I'm Ricky Kyle and I'm a rookie and I beat everybody for the IWAR title, but it's still good for him to continue on in the NWL. It just helps you understand, like, okay, these are the guys I don't like, or this is a league that I want to go to because this guy that I feud with in NWL that I like working with is. So I think that establishing that and doing that 17 cycles, like you get all these people, your wrestler establishes these feuds that carry over and keep carrying over for every league you go to, and it's just anytime they're like do cross promotion. So like Neo Dragon hates Robbie Blood. They're back in the day they were allies. Fighting Revolution Extreme, and somewhere along the line he like joined them. I'm not really sure. I wasn't in playing the game at the time.
That was an awesome angle that we did too, because Luther was feuding with Robbie Blood, and they had this blood feud. So we knew we were going to turn Robbie, and we were trying to figure out a way to turn him. So we did a thing where how Robbie Blood wears the mask, right?
Right.
Because he thinks he's ugly. So we did the whole Twilight Zone thing where he takes off the mask and he's handsome. And then Luther just repeatedly hit him in the head with a chair like a dozen times to make him turn heel.
All right. So, but yeah. So we have a history there because we were in the NWO together. So even though I think he's in the BRL now,
he
right?
Is.
If they ever cross paths and you sort of cross, that's already an established feud.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you can go after if you have like cross. It's just cool stuff. Plus, I think it helps you build your characters, just establish long running feuds, and so you're not always having to kind of like go into a league and not know anybody, not know anything, not have anybody to work with, because that would be really awkward if you just kind of walk in to a brand new league, walk in there cold. It's hard to gain traction. But if I can jump into a league and immediately start a feud with somebody and kind of build to something and a more established player, it gives you a little bit of credibility and people, okay, this isn't just like some random guy. He's like doing this with this person. So I think that the NWL is essential, like that whole period. Even if you're not learning at that point, you're developing your character and developing these feuds that are going to benefit you in the long run. So
that's the biggest thing. There's three things I want people to take away from the NWL is number one, learn about strategies. How do you do strategies? And once you understand the basic concept, I don't track holds. I hate doing holds. I hate doing strategies. I want to punch myself in the face when I do them. So I don't track them. But I understand the basic concept of strategies, and I average like a 494 to the 495 historically. A lot of people put too much time and effort in the strategies sometimes, and I really don't think the IWA really, really does anything with that. Like, there's a pattern, yes. Do they do the same drops cycle after cycle? No. Do they do the same drops in different feds? No. But once you understand those concepts, then you're pretty much good to go. Feel free to track hold if you'd like, but I don't do it personally. The second thing I want people to take away from the NWL is how to write effective TT. That's kind of the purpose. If you're going to be in the IWAR, period, you have to write TT. So many of our commissioner championships are based on it that if you want to get any traction there, you need to write TT. And then establish rivalries is the third one. Establishing rivalries with the guys who are around you at the time. Luther Alexander and Scotty Flash have been feuding for 4 years. It's just the way it is. I can always, if I have nothing to do, I just sneak attack Scotty Flash.
And like the thing, like the good example of that is like Great David, like Luther and Great David. Like anytime that they're like, Great David, it's always doing whatever it is that he does, which is like win, right?
Yeah.
But anytime Luther gets to that point where he's fighting Great David, it's always something because there's already that history, and it never has. I mean, it doesn't really has to end. There doesn't ever have to really be a rubber match for them. They don't even have to be in a feud. It's just the fact that they're gonna face each other. They don't like each other. Everybody already knows that. Makes the match.
It's your IWA version of Lawler and Dundee.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's good. So the biggest thing that I have, you're talking about your characters, is like don't try to make your character something. It's just like wrestling. You get over how you get over. So you have an idea about what you want to do with your character, but sometimes you're not. And you talked about that, and that's a big thing people need to try to do. Is like, you can try to be this world war, but nobody gets it. You turn heel and said, like, think about every wrestler ever has had like 30 different, they've always had some different type of gimmick or whatever. They keep trying, and finally one sticks and it blows up. So, especially in the NWL, you have 17 cycles to figure out what works and what doesn't work and how to get yourself over. Even though you have a smaller crowd, you still have to get yourself over. Yeah. I can get plenty of people in the NWL.
Because I'm still looking, I'm still looking. I'm like, who's going to be the next big thing? And it makes your character, because people ask me this all the time, what league should I go to? And I get that constantly. And I look at their character, and I can, based on your character and your TT, is where I can send you. In addition to your strategy tool. So if you're someone that constantly hits high strats, I'm going to recommend the IWL BRL. If you're someone maybe on the lower end tier, you average of 491 to 492, then CWL, BBL, ASL might be a place for you. And then once you get that kind of situated, then you can come in once you start averaging over a 494.
The process that we have in the IWAR is it's so much better. I don't think if people hadn't played the game before and then come in now, I don't think they would appreciate. I mean, I tried to play the game multiple times. Once when I was a kid, obviously, like, my parents didn't want to pay for it, and I had no idea what I was doing. And then once when I was like 2007, like getting mail on base, and like took forever to get there, and before they decided to use the internet, so it was just a big pain. Coming back and then having the IWAR and going to NWL, like all the things I like to do, like write trash talk and create those characters, that element was there along with the strategy. But I don't think I wouldn't be here if I had just joined like a random rando league and it was like me and like one other dude talking trash. And the IWAR is a good place to play. It's like a good sandbox. It's much better now, and I'm glad they had that because it has allowed everything to grow, and especially like with Luther, like he's kind of been a big part of the IWAR, at least for me, because I hate him. So
the big takeaway from Luther, I want people to understand what he is exactly, and I think it comes across, but maybe some people. He's a supervillain. He is Skeletor. He is Cobra Commander. He is ridiculous, and he's someone who 99% of the time doesn't mind looking ridiculous. He's someone that does sneak attacks on Supreme Court justices, and he does a run-in at the Olympics, and he once took a in coma Rick Riley in a wheelchair and then threw him down a bunch of stairs. 9 times out of 10, he'll lose a feud, he'll get beaten up, but he'll come back even more crazy, and that's what makes a good supervillain. So like, I'll get you next time, and he shakes his fist at you, and then we move on to the next thing. That's for me what Luther. He's a supervillain. He's ridiculous and he's completely insane. He is Skeletor. I'll get you, He-Man. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is a great foil to pick on and beat on at any time. And then Che, like, I like Che. It's fun to fight him occasionally and talk crap to him. Black Demon Jr., what you're doing, I don't really want to talk about that because I don't want to give that away. People can kind of see it, but it's obviously like still in the works. So I like that, bringing that history and that.
That concept I invented 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? Yeah, I pitched it to someone else. Someone else was looking for a character. And like, I have this Black Demon Jr. character, and he's going to fight Senior Lucha. And Matt knew about it like through the entire time because he runs Lucha. I pitched it to someone else, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I'm giving you gold here. You need to understand this.
But after watching AAA, if you guys don't end it with a mask versus mask match, it's not going to matter. Like it has to end that way.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but
it has to.
I think the swerve. It's a swerve, then it's a second swerve. Anyone who's following that story probably knows what the first swerve is going to be. They have no idea what the second swerve is going to be because it's insane.
All right, and then who was you said you make, so the female wrestlers, so kind of cover like what they're doing in the BRL female wrestlers. I mean, I think we've talked about it enough, and we're like kind of like a very close society, so everybody kind of knows, but kind of fill in, because it's like it's not a female league, but they're doing a female
division.
Like, division.
Yeah.
Spawned by like Jay and the Vixen Red.
So there's a couple different things here going at once. Number one, I transferred out Jay Crockett from the NWL to the BRL because in conversations that I had with Kim, like, do I still need to have a wrestler in here? Because to be a commissioner in the league, you need to have a wrestler in the league. That was kind of one of the deals. Basically, they need money from you so they can send you a bulletin, right? That's the concept. But now that they're all online, it's like, I don't have to be in the league, but I can still commission it. Cool. All right, I want to transfer my dude out because I would have to give him D strats or F strats. Like, oh, I'm shooting for 490 with my guy. I'm wasting money. It's ridiculous. So I moved Jay Crockett over to the BRL because the BRL just recently established their women's league, and now they have their Double X championship. And that league's formation is based on essentially Queen Isabella, who is run by Matt Unick, who does the Kardashian gimmick, and their feud with Jane the Vixen Red. And we had enough women wrestling, enough interest in women's wrestling and today's women's wrestling to justify a division. So I think once we announce a division, then female wrestlers start pouring into the BRL. Like, holy crap. When it comes down to the women's division, I think one of the things that people need to realize, it's a super serious women's division because women's wrestling today is super serious. It's not any different than the men's wrestling that's going on today. It has a big following now. If you just recently watched the Mae Young Classic, and that's the highest rated stuff on their network right now.
That brings something up for me, like we were just talking about women's wrestling in general. Mm-hmm. Like, so I was trying, like, my office didn't want my 8-year-old to watch women's wrestling, which there were other reasons behind it, and I understand that. That's fine, whatever. But like the perception of the way women's wrestling used to be, like when I came up, to where it is now is like completely different, and it's like mind-boggling. Because, like, so I was showing her an ad for the Mae Young Classic. They position these women, they advertise these women, they're athletes. Like, yes. Oh, I'm going to go in there and kick ass, or and they're lifting weights and they're doing it. So this is like completely revolutionary. I think a lot of it has to do with like Ronda Rousey, like going in there and like just punching people in the face. Now, granted, she got her shit rocked basically ever since. But like, since they decided to take that seriously, and I don't know whose idea it was, but I mean, I think that like the Japanese have done that for longer, like
forever. The Joshis, I love Joshis,
and they've had that for a long time, which is like good that we're doing it here now. And I think that they have a good crop of women. But I think that like Asuka, like I think that like she's like my favorite female wrestler just because she's scary. Like she could hurt someone. Some of the I like Alexa Bliss and Bayley or what, and they're really good wrestlers. But I think that if they can add a little bit more physicality to those matches, like I think good.
They're missing violence. To be honest, that's what they're missing, the violence.
They talk about how well they can work and stuff, and that's great. They don't always look like, if I had like a Natalya Asuka match, I'm pretty sure they would look like those chicks were fighting, like they were hurting each other, because they're not small, and they're both really technically proficient. So you really think that they could hurt themselves. And like I like Alexa Bliss. She's over her shit, and she's great. And she's like a powerlifter, so she's legitimately strong. But when she fights Sasha Banks, okay, cool. Like, that's neat.
Although that Bayley-Sasha Banks match in TakeOver is probably one of the best matches I've ever seen live.
When I went to Raw, like, they had the Alexa Bliss Bayley, like, doing something. It's not very exciting. I didn't feel like there's no danger. I think it's more of, as they allow them to become more physical, they will get more physical.
As I was saying on the NWA 1983 project, quick plug, I don't think they understand how to book women's wrestling yet. It's new, it's revolutionary, and they have this thing in their hand. And I don't think they really know and understand how to book it properly. I mean, because you have Michael P.S. Hayes, you have Road Dogg, they're writing TVs, right? Do you think Michael P.S. Hayes knows what the hell is going on? He's probably drunk right now. I'm willing to wager that he's drunk right now. So Sasha Banks, I'll put some Freebird on her. You DDT. I was like, get out of here. But if you get someone a little bit more, like, where are all the bookers that are under 40? There isn't any. But that's a whole nother discussion. But I don't think they know what to do with that yet. I think they'll figure it out eventually. Talking about G1 Women's Revolution, Generation 1, they're going to have to go through the bumps and the bruises on this. And I don't think hot-shotting their belt is not a good idea. It's like, oh, you win the belt and then you lose it on the next night on Raw. Yeah, that worked in 1998 with Steve Austin, but it's not going to work in 2017 with Sasha Banks. She's not going to get over that way.
Four Horsemen and all that, but they beat that to death. Bring in something new, somebody that's gonna so I'm really excited. I think Asuka got injured, but hopefully she moves on. She just held the title for so long, and she was legit. I don't want to fight that. I don't want to fight. You can beat me up like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think having her come into probably not Raw, maybe SmackDown, but even SmackDown, I don't know. I just feel like Natalia's a better champion.
I agree.
And she's solid. I can take her seriously. Maybe
there's so many good women out there. You look in the Mae Young Classic, why aren't half these girls signed?
It's good that in the BRL they're doing a league like that, because I think that it's people really are interested in doing a legit women's league, and I think it all ties back to that whole people really want to see that being taken seriously and booked really well and having legitimate champions, which they're kind of slowly getting into.
Yeah,
but I think it's like you said, it's going to take a while for them to. I think it's more of a comfort thing. It's who can we really trust with the belt? Who can really carry the belt? And I think they're trying to find those women, but at the same time, they really used up Becky Lynch and Charlotte and Sasha Banks and Bayley. They're really legit. They're established stars, but people are kind of tired of seeing them just
They booed Bayley when she got hurt. They booed her out of the goddamn building.
Well, she has had a bad transition from next to...
Because, they're booking her like Eugene, and that's the number one problem. Yeah. They're making her seem like she has some sort of mental deficiency. That's how they're booking her. Oh, I'm a super fan. I'm glad to be here. I was like, we need to put some edge on you. Put some edge on her. Maybe come out with a black leather jacket. I don't know. Just put some edge on her. I'm just glad to be here type shit. Ain't gonna fucking cut it no more.
Look, when I was at Raw, I saw Bo Dallas, one black glove, and I immediately took him more seriously. I don't know why that was. Maybe it's because it's his uncle, but I don't know. But I just saw it.
I've said that for months. There's 5 things they need to bring back to professional wrestling. Number 1 was more Cowboys. Number 2 was one black glove, because that's just menacing as hell. You look at your DiBiase's and you look at your Black Jack Mulligans and you look at Barry Windham, and it was awesome.
Try and speak objectively. Who do you like? Who do you think's doing the best work in the IWAR, in each league? So I know a lot of people have been talking about the Monroes and all that stuff they did. That was killer, especially with the way they did the newspaper clippings. I think that's still ongoing a little bit too. But they're doing a lot of really good work. So who do you just kind of go in league by league? I mean, I think you're familiar with most of the leagues. I know IWL and NWL obviously, and BRL because you're in it. I don't know CWL, but who do you feel or who do you like or follow a lot in each of those leagues?
In terms of the NWL, first and foremost, you have to go with Ricky Kyle, right off the bat. Second rookie ever to take the IWAR championship. He's doing good stuff. Cole Adams, those guys they're special, and you can tell. In terms of the IWL, any character that Seth's involved in, would it be the Monroes or the Chaotics, I'm down for it. He's my new favorite manager, and he'd probably end up winning Manager of the Year in the IWL, just because if you look at the top 10 rankings of wrestlers for the year, most of his guys are on it. Right. So he's doing a fantastic job overall. CWO, my old tag team partner Solace, he's come back with a vengeance over there, and it's really reinvigorated the league, especially with Dynamite coming back out, and of course you got to be on the lookout for Killer Clown as well. In the CWL, the BRL is a little bit more complicated because there's a lot of really good players. It's the cream of the crop, is the best of the best, in my opinion. You have a Sir Gunter, who is basically unbeatable. It's just the way it is. I can't beat him. No one can beat him.
I don't think. Well, Ricky Kyle did one time, so he should retire.
Yeah, he should retire.
He should be done. That's it. Not Sir Gunther, but Ricky Kyle, because he's never going to beat him again. So he just needs to.
He's just crazy good. Mark does a fantastic job. He's just crazy good. You have the Suburban Hell Savages. I mean, those guys are always doing big stuff, doing big things. You have Blood Money. Adam Cash, Fatty the Butcher, they're always up to no good, doing some sort of shenanigans. Riley and Challenger, Noble House, those are guys I really kind of dig right now. And those are guys that I often follow. And I try to, make sure that they stay involved, which always can be tough from time to time.
When we're talking about, like, moving from the IWA to, like, just wrestling proper, like, who are some people that you feel like you're following right now, just in any league, be it, Japan, wherever? Who do you think are you following right now a lot, or you really like right now?
I'm always a big proponent of the guys on the come up. You guys know who all the stars are. You guys know your John Cena, your Roman Reigns, your AJ Styles, your Kevin Owens, your Finn Balor's. The list goes on and on. I'm always looking for the next guy. I was a big fan of Steve Austin before he got hot. I was a big fan of Bret Hart when he was in the Hart Foundation in '88. I thought he was going to be world champion in 1990. Actually, there's a picture I drew dated October 1990 of Bret Hart with the WWF Championship. So I'm always looking on the guys on the come up. So for me, first and foremost is Ricochet. He is fantastic and he's awesome. So be on the lookout for him. Prince Puma for your Lucha Underground fans. He does a great job all around. He's actually, I believe he's married to Tessa Blanchard too, which that can be a whole dynamic all on its own. And then you have Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle will be the top guy in professional wrestling in about 6 years.
So who's Matt Riddle? Like, I've heard that not
Matt
really.
Riddle is a former UFC fighter turned pro wrestler. In the ring, imagine someone who, he has that MMA style, but he can work. Put that combination together. He's actually more fluid than like a Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock was really stiff in the ring, and right. His mobility was limited. Matt could do anything in the ring. In addition, he looks like your typical California surfer dude. So he's going to get the ladies. And this guy's going to be a big draw moving forward. He's a little bit like Rob Van Dam. He likes the hydroponics, if you know what I mean. And he got in trouble for that a couple times already. But if you can clean that up for a really big run, I think he can be the next big thing. Period.
So where's he working at a lot right now?
Mostly, he's all over the place. So he's any of your top indies he'll be at. So you're talking about your Evolve. He hasn't had a run in Ring of Honor yet, but he's probably coming there sooner rather than later. Expecting to see him in NXT anytime soon. But I've seen him in like Wrestle Circus. I've seen him in any of your established, well-known independents throughout the United States and in the world. So I know he spent some time in the UK and some time in Japan as well. So, is
there anybody else that you can think of that you are following other than those two?
I mean, of course, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, I really like what they're doing. They're reinventing what it means to be an independent wrestler because they're making their own money. They don't have the machine behind them, but they're incredibly over, and they're making a boatload of money off their gimmicks and their T-shirts. Eli Drake from TNA, your current TNA or Global Force or Impact or whatever you want to call them, champion. I think he is he's really good. He has really great matches. I remember seeing him back in, I want to say Florida Championship Wrestling when that was the Elemental back in the day. I've seen him. But he's really good, and he's someone that never got an opportunity. And then, of course, there's Cody Rhodes, because when I met Cody Rhodes in person, he was like the sweetest dude on the face of the earth. He was awesome.
Yeah, so I was about to say Cody Rhodes, he's like just the fact that he was able to walk in ROH, New Japan, his work, his promos, the WWE, to hide him behind the makeup as Stardust and then not let him, the fact that they just didn't let him do stuff is just mind-boggling. Why? You have a package, you have a Randy Orton type guy, body guy, looks good, is good, he can do whatever he needs to do in the ring, and he gives 1,000 times better promo. You're just not letting him do things, and then as soon as he leaves, he blows up. What?
There's a lot of guys on that roster that can do the same exact thing. They're just scared.
I think that it's a good time to be a wrestling fan
because
of the internet and what New Japan is doing and just ROH and all that. Is I think there are plenty of guys, like you said. If Dolph Ziggler should definitely leave. Rusev is trying to leave. He should definitely leave. There's no I think the biggest problem that WWE has right now is they have too many people on their roster.
I've been saying the same thing for months. They need to cut that roster down probably 30% at least. But they're afraid that someone else will get hot on the competition, so they're bringing a bunch of these indie names just to cool them off. You really think that Adam Cole's going to get a fair shot?
Well,
Kyle
they have
O'Reilly,
what?
Bobby Fish, any of these guys don't get a fair shot, they're gonna be cooled off.
Red Dragon. Like, well, and the thing is too is even if they kill it in next, they get brought up and then they don't do anything. Like they go no. I just don't know what the answer is. That because I mean you can say like Vince McMahon, blah blah blah.
I know the reason. I understand that. I understand the concept is stupid, but I understand the concept of what they're doing. And I noticed this in two scenarios. We can go back and we can look at CM Punk and we look at Daniel Bryan, and the way they booked them made absolutely no sense. Even more evident with Daniel Bryan, he was getting over. Yes, was the hottest thing in the world, and then all of a sudden they put him in the Wyatt family for no reason and put him in a jumpsuit for no reason, and then they had to take him out of it because they realized it was shit. They do not want anyone above the brand. What sells is for the WWE. What they sell is the WWE. They don't sell Hulk Hogan, Bruno Sammartino, Ric Flair. They sell the WWE. So when anyone is getting more over than the logo, they cool them off. Why Cena was like, I'm leaving and I'm coming back. Cena leaving, coming back. Roman Reigns, mixed reaction. We're gonna keep it that way. We're not gonna book him good. We're gonna book him half booze because we don't want anyone getting over more than the logo. It's short-sighted and it's stupid, but their concept is like, we want to be like the NFL. So no matter what teams we put out there, they're going to draw a rating. No matter what team is in the Super Bowl, we're going to draw a rating. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, again, like you say, like I just don't think like you can't have all the same talent and all that little bitty. There's just no way. Like, you can't feature everybody. No. If everybody on there is a main event, no, not everybody is going to have a main event match. So you can't, and then you can't book. You're not making new talent by bringing in people that are already getting over in other places. So you're just bringing in people that are right above main eventers or main eventers in other places and then putting them in the mid card. Nobody wants to see them there because, whatever. And then you're pushing so you're trying to push who you want to push and then bringing in people to fill the mid card that are better than the people that you're trying to push.
It's what bit WCW in the ass. Look at it. Yeah. WCW's mid card was like Jericho, Benoit, Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Lance Storm. And they had, this incredible mid card, and they had you guys on top that no one really wanted to see anymore past 1997. And I was like, I don't want to see that Kevin Nash versus Sid Vicious match.
I watched like World War III, and I think it was like right when the NWO came out. So they were like big enough, but they weren't like everybody wasn't in the NWO, but most people were. It was like before Giant turned and all that. So they had this War Games match. So they kind of like talked about Rey Mysterio, Benoit, and Jericho, but they like. Well, World War III is a mess to film anyway. I don't know. This is like the stupid. It was like
when they had the three different camera shots and they're in boxes. Well, the boxes are really small for some reason, so you can't see shit.
Yeah, so they'd be like, "Oh, I think Jericho just got thrown out." So like they're trying to build these stars, but because the NWO is like what they want to sell is like taking precedence over them building cars. So they can't put in a Benoit or a Jericho, no matter how hot, no matter how over they are, or Rey Mysterio, because it's all about the NWO. And you can't put a Jericho or Benoit guy in there against like Macho Man because they don't want to have a match. Like Benoit's a great technical wrestler, and yes, he could have gone really well with Sab, but what the story they're telling it doesn't fit. There's no time for that. So
there's a gap. There's a talent gap in their eyes, not in our eyes, but in their eyes.
Right. So there's just this, and then just watching it, like the NWO is like staying in their own ring. Then they refuse to go. It's just, and they're doing like. They're blatantly cheating and like, but it's not like cheating like, like I'm getting one over on the ref. They're like blatantly breaking the rules. You can't do that. It like makes the match look dumb. Right. So like if you're just doing able to do whatever you want to do, it doesn't really just ruin kayfabe. It just makes the whole situation look stupid. If you don't have to do that, then why does anybody else? So everybody else is stupid and you're the only ones that are smart. So you're not heels. You're just smarter than everybody else. It's just really stupid. But I think that WWE just has no. Like I went going to Raw, like I hadn't been to a real event in like forever, and it was fun to go, and like it was cool to see them actually do live, like 205 Live is like really cool. Sometimes when it's live, right, because they're doing like moves and flippy shit, which looks cool, right? But the best match of the night was they had like Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, and then Braun Strowman came out and just cleaned everybody, right? But it was awesome because
did you get the dark match at the end? The dark match main event.
So he just destroyed everybody, and it was great. But it's just so, like, Roman Reigns, like, everybody hates him, right? Like, Nashville was booing him, and I got my 5-year-old to boo him, too, which was awesome. But he's like, I cared about the match because I want to see Roman lose or get beat or whatever, right? Yeah. So he's at least doing something. Like, they're complaining about he's losing merch, but that's just because they
booked him like crap.
Yeah, they book him like crap. So you got to the point where we all hate him, right? Getting him bad heat, but at least I care enough to want to see him get beat up, right? Like, I'm excited to watch him get rocked. And I think Strowman's great. I think Samoa Joe, like, that whole thing that they have going on, like, that's good. It's making everybody look good. And having Braun Strowman just beat everyone up is great because he's actually turning out to be a pretty decent, like, big guy. And I like it. He seems like he's like a real threat to Brock Lesnar, which no one else really, other than Joe, seems like a legit threat to him, right?
Yeah.
I like Cody Rhodes because of what he was able to do outside WWE. He's super over. Anytime he like does anything, he's a huge fucking dick. He says like horrible fucking shit, and it's amazing. Like, he's like, fuck the Revival. Like, I don't even know why that happened. It's just hilarious. Like, it's just something where he's just like, fuck the Revival. Like, I don't even know why he keeps saying that, but it's hilarious because he can, and he does. He's like a disrespectful prick. And in Japan, it's like, you know, he's with the Young Bucks.
And he's having good matches. Like, matches like, holy shit, like, where was this?
Yeah, well, he looks like he had a match with Okada. And, you know, obviously it wasn't like with like Omega Okada, but I mean, it was a really good match.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, the problem is that like it's hard to see where they're going to go. Because like with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, like their shtick is like good, but eventually it's going to get old.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? Because Japan, there's not that many. It's not like a WWE or even like a ROH. There aren't that many top guys. You can only have like Okada and Tanahashi and like a couple others.
Yeah.
So you can't really have, you know, and they have tag teams, but it's not. There's so much because of Okada and Omega, kind of like when it was Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles. So it was a great match. Tanahashi and Okada 2, where Okada finally beat him. Like, that was great. But it's kind of like they can only do that for so long. I don't know what they're going to end up having to do.
The good thing about Japan is they do tours, and when they do tours, they rotate roster. So, like, now they're really kind of getting behind Michael Elgin a lot, and he might be a guy moving forward. So they're bringing guys to get them over, and then once they're ready to get in one of those top spots, they shift someone else out. So it'll be like, oh, AJ Styles left. Oh, Finn Balor left. Oh, we can pull. You know, they have enough. There's enough talent out there. They keep on replenishing their roster. And I don't think they're ever going to run out because at some point the WWE is going to have to stop signing guys. And then when the WWE starts releasing guys, say a Dolph Ziggler, he can go to Japan and make a big difference over there because he can work that style regardless.
I think with what Lucha Underground did, like ROH, like they're owned by Sinclair, so they're like, you know, they kind of don't have a lot. But if Sinclair could work something out with like a streaming service, even like Hulu, and it would like you would show episodic ROH episodes, people will watch the shit out of that. I think that's kind of where it's going because TV contract the WWE has, like that kind of stuff, that's all going away. That's why they have the network and they have all that. You're never going to get like an ROH to get on NBC or USA or ESPN. There's no reason for that. It would be stupid for them to do. They can get on
it just depends on where the split comes because like Spike used to pay TNA a lot of money to be on their network. And they used to pay some of the, like Sting got paid from TNA. I think Hulk Hogan got paid by Spike. You know, a lot of the Kurt Angle got paid by Spike, and it offset some of the production costs. Now, if they can replace that production cost with a $9.99 network, that's fantastic. But I just think the ad splits are not in their favor yet. So we're talking maybe you're still 5 years away from Raw not being on television. It would be completely on streaming service. Ring of Honor, who they're on syndicating TV throughout the country. Depending, like I don't have them. We don't have them here. I just don't have that network. Would have it? Sinclair doesn't have a strong foothold in New York. But if I want to, I could find it. It's not. You got a Fire Stick, you can find anything. That's the bottom line. So if you want to watch it, but want to get mainstream with it. Could they get on a Netflix? Can we get on a sporting kind of streaming service that, I know there's like, was it Fight Net or Fight TV? They do a couple of things. Twitch is streaming pay-per-views. I know YouTube has a deal with CMML, which I tell about on our next NWA 1983 project. Look out for that. CMML. That is the competitor for AAA. So all their episodes are on YouTube, So it just kind of depends. The cool part about that, the thing about streaming services, is that they're worldwide. I can watch New Japan today. I can watch New Japan at 4 o'clock in the morning when it comes on live.
If they were smart, like, they would do something where New Japan, ROH, maybe somebody else, either here in the States or in Mexico or something, or even in England, because England's blowing up right now.
Yeah.
If they got something where they all did a streaming channel, so they added all their libraries.
New Japan has CMML on their streaming network for their pay-per-views now. That could be, that could be something down the road for New Japan, because New Japan's gonna have to lead the way because they're the promotion with the most money, and they're doing extremely well. So if they can get kind of what WWE talked about getting independent promotions on the WWE network, but never really followed through with that. They could do it, and they're able to bring American content, whether it be Ring of Honor, Wrestle Circus, Evolve, what have you, CZW, to the masses, worldwide. They're going to have a competitive advantage over the WWE because, if I had to pick between a all-encompassing wrestling network that has 10, 11 different promotions on it, or just watch WWE, I want to take the one that has 10 or 11 different promotions on it.
Right. Well, if you charge like $10 for that, or whatever, I mean, it's kind of the only thing that WWE really has is all their library. But if I'm talking about like new live events and I want to see the best of the best, if as WWE starts hemorrhaging, which I think they're getting to the point where they're going to start losing a lot of guys that aren't at the top, but they're like right there where they're. I think if they could get a streaming service, I could see. I mean, look at like Johnny Mundo, Johnny whatever the hell his name is today. Yeah. He's legit, and he was good. And then they let him go. Where I remember he had that elimination chamber match where he climbed. He did that. Yeah. That spot where he did he was getting over. He was doing these things. They kind of let him go. I don't really know what happened. It's like backstage stuff, whatever. But now he got himself over, and So if they keep getting guys like that out to the independents and. They keep Cody Rhodes and guys like that, and they're making money.
A new company could emerge. So don't forget that we have Billy Corgan and the NWA out there. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins had just purchased outright the NWA, and hasn't decided what he's going to do with that yet. But he could put together a promotion, and with his notoriety, could probably get a show somewhere on a streaming service, and then you can bring in high-profile, expensive talent, but less of them. Because all you really need is 8 to 12 guys to start, and then you can boost it up to 15 or 16 if you really need to. Or you can just rotate guys out. Like, for me personally, if I owned a promotion today, if I was in charge of the NWA, I wouldn't sign anyone more than 6 months. Everyone's on a 6-month contract, or champions on a year contract. That's it. Because then I can just reset the roster when I need to. And I'm not stuck with guys forever.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know why. The WWE used to let people go and then would bring them back. So they let them go and they bring them back, and even New Japan.
They're hoarding talent.
Yeah, well, and it's foolish because they should send guys away. They should they need to work on. In fact, they don't have a sharing program where they can send guys over to Japan to learn how to get over. And you can do it before next. So I can sign somebody, send him to Japan, or a guy that's just like Randy Orton. Like Randy Orton, go to New Japan for 6 months and do New Japan stuff, and then come back to the W. Build up, because you're legit talent, but you're really stale. You've been around forever, right?
Randy Orton is stale than a 6-month-old fucking cracker.
Right, but he just needs to go somewhere else, do something new for a while, and then come back, or be off TV for a long time, not injured, or and that's the
go do a movie, go do a lame ass movie or something.
They don't when they bring guys back. There's not a lot of pomp and circumstance behind it. It's just bring it back. I remember a dude be off TV, oh, where's so and so? You never knew why, because kayfabe and shit. But if they just bring him back and oh shit, he comes back and does this and puts him into a strong angle and books him strong, but they're always oh, they're back now. Or they'll do a random, but do something different with them, do something have a reason for them to come back, or like John Cena. John Cena, are they he looks like he's gonna be a heel. He's a dick. He's doing Baron Corbin, granted nobody likes Baron Corbin, but he's being a dick. And he can see he's being a dick. So he either just does not care, or they're going to do something with him where he's going to turn. Which, I mean, I think it's late, but at this point, he has to do something because you were saying he hasn't done anything in like ever. Like there's no progression. He's done nothing. So I think that if they turn him heel,
he's having good matches though. Like he had a great match with Kevin Owens. He had a great match with AJ Styles.
He never acknowledges that he does anything too. Like Matt was saying, like, oh, you get destroyed by Brock Lesnar. Yeah, whatever. I'm good at. I just got humiliated on like a nice huge stage by a guy that's like a part timer. But whatever, it's cool. It'll just continue to be shitty, and people. I'll watch it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think anybody's gonna not watch WWE anymore. So,
I think we should only watch pay-per-views. I can't watch Raw every week. I can't.
I cannot. Like, I went to Raw, and it was 5 hours, and my 5-year-old wanted to leave. And I was like, no, we're going to stay because we paid for these tickets. But it was just, it's so long. There's so much. I don't care about the majority of it. And Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose came out first. But when the show actually started, that was cool. Miz is awesome. Miz is great at everything he does. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose are both good. But Dean Ambrose could probably do more as a worker. As that little promo and them fighting and like doing shit, that was good. I enjoyed that. That was fun to see live. Or even just to see Big Show live. Or to see Enzo Amore, even though he's worthless. He's still good on the mic. Yeah, big cast. That was cool. But then I don't need to see everybody else. I don't care about 205 Live because you haven't given me a reason to. Like, just but I'm here for 5 hours and I want to die and never watch wrestling again until tomorrow. But for that time period of time, I just so much like wrestling overdose. And yeah, I can't watch. I only watch the pay-per-views. Like, I'll follow it online. Like us.
That's all you need because they were going to recap it anyway. I figure a pay-per-view every 3 weeks. That's not too bad.
There's very few angles that I care about, or very few. Yeah. There's not enough of people for me to be like. Yeah.
There's nothing there that's must see. Like, I have to see this now. No,
right. I mean, they just like, it almost seems like they like with Nakamura, like when they had him fight for the title, it was just why were you putting him, like, it was almost like they just fed Nakamura to make Mahal over, but they had him cheat to win. So he didn't go over clean, really. So he didn't really prove anything other than the fact that he's really lucky. I think he can get better, but I just don't like the booking. Again, it's just like, have him win clean. Like, I get he's a heel. I get that. But at a certain point, this guy's like yoked beyond belief.
Yeah.
He needs to start winning clean for me to start taking him seriously. Like, so, you know, if you're going to waste Nakamura on...
It's this typical 1980s booking. I mean, that's what it is. And someone who loves the 80s, I can't get enough of it. I watched that... I can watch 17 hours straight of, like, Georgia Championship Wrestling from 82. And I can't sit through a 3-hour Raw. But what they're doing is a lot of really the worst part of 80s booking. Like, they don't take the good things you can learn from the 80s, but they take all the bad pieces from it and try to use that. Like, one of the bad things they did in the 80s is the way they booked Ric Flair on top, because he would never win clean. He would always cheat. So he wasn't credible. And this is post-territories. We're talking post-territories. On a national stage, having your champion cheat every time he wrestles to win, it's ridiculous. He didn't beat anyone with the figure 4. Why would I care if he put Luger in the figure 4? I know he's going to reverse it. It doesn't matter. And that was Dusty being stuck in the 70s, because that's the way they did it back in the territories, because the champion used to go out and try to make these wrestlers look good. Oh, I'm beatable. So next time the champion's in town, you know, the fans would come out. But when you're talking about everyone sees everything at once, you can't book that way anymore. And what they're doing, the gender is very much the same. It's like,
yeah, or just like give him like something, or he beats someone that's established. Like, give him Cena. Like, just have him beat Cena clean. Like, that's fine with everybody. John Cena doesn't improve anything, but you're like just feeding people to him. But it's like, oh well.
Can he beat Sami Zayn clean? How about that? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's not too big of an achievement anymore. That poor guy. Saying. He needs to get quit too. But anyway, that's just kind of the way that they're going to continue to book Ed Nauseam.
But there's so many, there's so much alternative stuff out there. There's no reason to be sad. Where you just stop watching and just go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's nice because I just pay $10 and then I watch pay-per-views, which honestly I would never pay. I would feel sad if I had to pay $60 for some.
Yeah, imagine. So the way I view it, it's like you just view your pay-per-views as your new Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. Like, that's the thing you want to watch. You want to catch a funny Roman Reigns versus John Cena promo? Okay, but you can catch that on fucking Twitter or something.
because they're going to post it on there anyway.
Yeah, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, appreciate you taking the time to talk with me tonight. We covered a bunch of stuff. So, but